think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
Do not trust any friends or family members. I repeat, do not trust friends.
Unofficially? You want to do it officially on the...
No. That's
No,
got to
never.
stay buried, I think.
What's the what was his like? Well, he was the what was his?
He's the crocodile hunter, wasn't he? Like, wasn't that
He was
his
the
name?
crocodile hunter.
Yeah.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking he was like Whisperer, but then that's the dog Whisperer.
No, that's Caesar somebody Hernandez.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Both of them immortalized on South Park, I would imagine.
You're absolutely right. They both were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whole episode devoted to taming Cartman
Yeah.
using the dog methods.
I used that on the boy.
And I think Steve Irwin was like jamming his thumb up animals.
Up the crocodile's arse?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's not just my.
That sounds right. I mean, that's
Well, we both.
Yeah,
if we're both wrong, then we're both right because
yeah,
you can't
yeah.
both hallucinate that.
Yeah, well, it's like the Mandela effect, I guess, or not like it at all. I kid you not, though. There was apparently this is a very effective technique to like an animal that's biting you. You shove your thumb up its ass, or attempt to. You just give it the old, and it's actually, and between you and me, and perhaps the audience, this is very effective in humans as well. If someone's like really giving you the gears, just like give them the old thumb in the ass, and they like, oh.
Yeah. I'd say for any situation that would just come as a shock.
Yeah.
Reframe the situation.
Yeah, it does reframe the situation.
Not that I recommend this, but
yeah. I don't. Well, I'm going to recommend it because someone was being bit by a dog. Like someone encountered someone getting bit by like a fierce dog or whatever, and he had spoke to one of my colleagues over at the club, and who I guess also had used this technique in the past dealing with a biting animal.
Wow.
And he just came up and he just thumbed the dog in the ass. The dog let go of the person, and that was that. So, if you're ever attacked by a wild dog, you got two options so far as I understand in the world. You can reach in and grab the jaws and pull outwards, and break the jaw. I don't know if I'm going to recommend that one, but I understand that that's a potential possibility. The other one is thumb it in the ass. So I'm going to leave that just to the audience to decide. If this ever encounters, these things can, just try both, right? Try the ass thing first, though, at like higher percentage success rate, I think.
I feel like when people tune in, they're going to learn some stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I want. I want this to be like the BBC, like back to the vision of the Wreath, like the Wreath lectures. Like we're public intellectuals here at the Extinction Agenda, educating the masses, giving back to the community. Like this is free, right? People experience this as free. I mean, the psychic toll that they experience is another matter, but
yeah, there's always a cost, but you make your peace with it.
Yeah. Hopefully. So yeah, today, speaking of fucking having a cost.
Psychic tolls.
Psychic tolls and having a cost. It's Avatar August. And frankly, this month might be the last Avatar August. We're running out of material. There's actually lots of material, but there's only so much. Like, do we want to read David Lapham's Crossed? Do we want to read Jamie Delano's Crossed? There's a ton of Warren Ellis shit. And then there's like jungle fantasy, which is just like fucking porno. And it's just a lot of like bad girl books elsewhere, the only other one that I think I really would like to cover maybe next year is Kieran Gillen's Uber, which is one of my little guilty pleasures. I love that book, and only Avatar could bring us that book.
I'm in on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that contradicts what I said. Maybe next year will be the last Avatar August. Then we'll have to find a.
We just kind of plumbed the depths of hell, and there's nothing left.
Yeah, well, there is another Garth Ennis Crossed after this. There is some web comics that got collected. So maybe next year that too. And then I just know how much you hate Warren Ellis. So I'm really hesitant to like, let's read Ignition City. You're just gonna fucking grit your teeth the whole time.
I think it's, yeah, it is kind of reaching a terminal point. Like, but I would still do it. I feel like Warren Ellis is something to grapple with always. So I could always be talked into it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'd be as enjoyable for you to have me bitch about.
But no, I don't mind. Never bothers me. I mean, I'm Warren deserves everything he gets. Always. Good and bad. So okay, well, I don't know. I just yeah, but I'm just concerned that Avatar August is transforming into Garth Ennis and Warren Ellis August, and maybe there's worse things in life.
It's true, but the returns haven't diminished yet because this stuff's pretty good.
Yeah. So what are we doing today? We've got we're doing one of the war stories, J for Jenny. Now, this was originally a DC comic, a one shot, part of a series of one shots. That we came out 2000. Two of them came out. So okay, there was our first round of 4, and then a second round of 4, and then a bunch afterwards too. But and they came out in 2001, 2002, 2003. So this story that we're going to be reading is February of 2003. Now it's under Vertigo now. I don't know why Garth made the switch. I think it had to do with them canceling The Boys. I think after, I might be wrong about that. When is The Boys after that? Oh, yeah, The Boys is after this. The first 6 issues of The Boys, if I remember correctly, was a Vertigo book. Fuck, I hope I'm right about that. But it was just too offensive about superhero stuff, I guess. And they wouldn't let him do everything he wanted to do, so he moved it over to Dynamite. I think that's where he ended up.
That's right.
And
yes.
I think he moved some of his other properties over to Fairer Shores, and War Stories ended up at Avatar. I think that's how that went down. So we're doing that. J for Jenny. It's a bombing story, British Royal Air Force bombing story. And then we're doing Crossed, the second Crossed Badlands. When the fuck were these things? Oh, my notes got cut off here.
2014, I think.
2014, yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Another bombing story.
Yeah, well, that was it, right? Because you read through Crossed Badlands, issue 50 through 56 or 55, and you thought maybe there wasn't enough meat on the bones, and so I was like, well, let's pair up some bombing stories. Yeah. Because we haven't. Garth has done so many war stories, and they tend to be quite excellent, as Garth stuff tends to be. So hopefully this pairing works out. How do you want to tackle this?
Do you want to do the bombing? Do you want to do J for Jenny first?
Yeah, we'll do the chronologically. Yeah.
Reserve.
Sure. Yeah. So this is like a 60-page comic illustrated by David Lloyd, who V for Vendetta fame. He was the penciler, inker, colorist, the whole shebang, just not the letterer. And it's a very muted color palette. It's very reminiscent of this is what David Lloyd does. Everything looks like it's from the mid 80s, and that's totally fine.
I was shocked to hear that because I did not like the art in this. It's so flat, and yeah, like there is something. It's like one color per panel almost, or even per page, sort of kind of providing a little sheen over it. But I think the art itself is so almost abstract. Like it looks like a stamp half the time, and you can't really tell who anybody is. So you're kind of like picking up the story from like the speech and like context clues.
Yeah, you would expect a whole lot better from David Lloyd, wouldn't you? Because it's not as if he's an amateur by any stretch of the imagination. But you're right, it is like it's all washed out in blues and blacks and some flesh tones. And whenever fire is depicted, it's depicted as like this whiteness. Yeah. And yeah, as often I know what you're talking about. Sometimes it's pretty clear who the characters are, and then other times not clear at all.
Yeah,
Kind of
especially
a
when
kind of
they're
a
in the
shit show.
cockpit with their masks on, and you're trying to figure out like who's shouting at who.
Yeah, I tried to look at that as a feature rather than a bug,
That's fair,
because they
I
were talking
guess.
about, the heat suit, which barely works, just makes a clumsy ogre of you. So good luck getting it on time, or getting out on time, in time. So pardon me. Um, the Yeah, it sort of dehumanizes them. It kind of reminded me of fuck Pink Floyd's The Wall, uh, to an extent. I don't think there's a connection between the two things at all, but just that dehumanizing of the military, like turning it into a machine, into some sort of apparatus, like usually marching with hammers for legs. I think
Yeah,
that's the chief difference.
that's
No
fair.
hammers for legs here.
No, I think the that I don't want to call it a fixation. What's the word I want to use? The representation of flying. And I know that this is factual, so but I think Garth pulls meaning out of it. Like, but everything is kind of covered in frost in the sky, and it's iced over, and like you're freezing cold, and it's that emotional distance from the targets as well. Like, is kind of
Right.
brought to light through that symbolism.
That's interesting. I hadn't considered that. But if so, then no, I guess there are some like sort of fire, some dark. No, there's not even any reds. I take it back. The If that's the case, then so the central drama in this is obviously, like the Royal Air Force. They're on the offensive against Jerry, and they're bombing civilians, like German civilians. They're doing bombing runs night after night after night, and everybody. There's one guy who really enjoys it. What's his name? Page.
Page.
And he's the captain or something like that. He's the leader of the flight squad, captain of the ship, and yeah, he just, for him it's personal. There is no emotional distance, and that's the spark that brings drama out of all of this.
Yeah, and the other. This is really, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I felt like this is almost like a Punisher versus Captain America story, like at least in its DNA.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah, well, even like Page's backstory, his
gotta burn
wife
him out.
and children were killed by Germans in the bombings during the early part of the war in
My
London.
goodness, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and then like Stark is so like well, he's not really. He has that sense of humanity, that decency, that like where I think Cap would say something about a horrible conflict. I know it's like kind of dumb to like take a war story and then impose superheroes on it. That's like striving for
I
maximum
think it's
drama, but
I think it's warranted given the timing of this. So like 2003, like Punisher Born is written. So is the Punisher Volume 5 series, like the Punisher Max series.
okay.
Uh, like these things are going to come out of all the same stew. And I did find myself wondering, because like he finishes Preacher, and Garth finishes with Preacher, he finishes with Hitman, he finishes with his first run on the Punisher, the Marvel Knights series. Um, and then I don't know, he does a bunch of other stuff, but then like he starts pumping out these war stories, and then suddenly his Punisher changes. And I know there's lots of factors that go into that, but I can't help but see a connection there.
Yeah.
And so I think, what you've pointed to, I don't think it's actually that silly.
As a little
Yeah.
aside too, there's this pride that Garth takes, and I think it's warranted. I'm not making fun in his war
Mhm.
stories. And even when someone asked him, I found a quote when he's talking about these volumes, like what he thought was his best work, and he would point to, not this story particularly. There's one called The Nightingales or something like that. But he's like, yeah, like that's what I would say. Like this is what I'm capable of. So I
Oh.
think there's like almost like and I've also heard comments in an interview where he's said, like he's appreciated having done Preacher. He's fond of it, but it almost feels like he distances himself from a maturity standpoint in terms of how he
Mhm.
writes later in his career. It's like that
Yeah.
was a fun thing to do, but I do better work now. Is almost the attitude he has towards it.
And I agree. I mean, I think it's like leaps and bounds. He still fucks around, right? Like he
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
stopped
yeah.
being a funny guy. But um, in the so you've got like you read the Vertigo one shot, like a digital version of it. Does that have like any like a bibliography or anything, or any sort of back notes or
Mm,
um,
I only looked at the story itself, and
right, right.
I pulled out like a volume of it.
I bet it doesn't. Because it's just like a single issue. But one of the nice things about this collection is J for Jenny. He gives a bibliography of the books that he sort of drew upon. Like he's such a warhead, and like sorry, not like explosive, but yeah, he just fucking he reads a lot of war books, and it's
Yeah.
really cool to yeah, he'll just here's here, and then there's an essay, not an essay, but an introductory little and afterward, how many paragraphs? Like 12 paragraphs of 10 paragraphs of material on like what he was thinking and uh, at the time that he was writing it.
Hmm. I
Um,
have a question. In the bibliography,
sure,
does it mention, or do you have it? I don't know if you have it handy, but did you
I've got
mention a
it in
book
front of
called?
me. Yeah.
Okay. Did you mention a book called On Killing?
No, although I do know that book. I know
Okay.
about that book.
Okay.
I'm sure at some point he's read it, but
All right.
no,
I'm
he cites. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Finish that thought.
It's just 5 books. He cites Looking into Hell, and I looked up all these books, which is it's a memoir of not a memoir, like a collection of like stories of like first-hand accounts of fighter bombers in the RAF. Bomber Squadron at War, which is I guess just like a kind of a history. The Right of the Line, which is a also another history of the RAF and like kind of a detailed one. And then more general works, Why the Allies Won by Richard Overy, which is just kind of argues that there was if I remember correctly, it's sort of about economic and air superiority, one of the reasons that the Allies won. And then the Second World War by John Keegan, which is just like a general account. I'm surprised to see he's citing it. There must have been something that he pulled specifically from it.
Hmm.
What about On Killing?
I found myself thinking about that book throughout this because a big theme in that book is how, like, from a distance, killing is easy, or
Yeah.
easier. Like he talked about snipers, and even how snipers in battle situations, in a military situation, they tend to be outcasts or even like looked upon as sort of noxious, even by their own side, because just
Right.
like there's something, I don't know, something alienating to people about the fact that you can do that. Um, but and this is sort of like a similar situation from the air, and Paige is very like, so basically it's kind of getting into that, and this is a bit, I'm not gonna say forbidden territory, but people don't like to talk about the casualties of German civilians in war, in World War II.
Yeah.
But this is delving into the idea of the fire bombings and just sort of like the carpet bombing campaigns, and really asking some tough questions ethically about war. What's the point of doing this when it didn't do anything to London? When London came out of it and determined to fight Germany to the end. There's a lot of playing with the idea of distance. There's they night after night they drop bombs on German civilians. They say that they're targeting, it's not our fault that their munition factories are next to these small towns, but Stark is always there saying, that's bullshit. We're doing the same thing to them that they did to us, kind of bringing the humanity back into it. And Paige is, not only does he love sort of tormenting, saying, I hope we bomb an orphanage tonight, and just kind of like playing into how hell-bent he is on exterminating all the Germans. But there's just that discomfort that maybe what Stark is doing is undermining their success and the morale of their team by bringing back the humanity into these civilians.
Yeah. What is this? Some kind of sick joke? Like I'm thinking of Full Metal Jacket when what's his name here? Cowboy, the Joker. He's got the peace sign, and and it's got a peace sign, and you got a helmet that says I don't know, Made to Kill, something like, fuck, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. I was trying to make a comment about the duality of man, sir. Some kind of sick joke. I think the more I think about it, like I'm obviously listening to you, but I think the more that you speak, the more I find myself thinking that this is not Punisher versus Captain America, it's Punisher versus Daredevil. And because like they're having one of those Ennis likes to, he likes to moralize. He's a moralizer who likes to make fun of moralizers and therefore get away with his moralizing. His war stories tend to be sort of biting commentaries, like that's which is fine, right? He loves to dress everything up in historical realism. He loves to talk the talk, and like make sure all the guns are accurate and the machinery when referenced is, like another 60-year-old man who's read like 500 war books is going to be like, that's correct. And then he likes to use it all to just like to just talk about morality. I don't know if that either morality or love in the face of tragedy. I think I'm going on a limb and reducing these war stories, but I've read most of them, and also his like Dynamite war stories, which are like, fuck, those are really good too. Sometimes the art doesn't live up to it, but or most of the times the art doesn't live up to it. It's kind of the Ennis's curse, and it's no different here. He encounters Paige, and like Paige is upset because upset's a soft word for it, because his family was murdered. And so he's going to murder families, and they have that final encounter before they go on that last unsuccessful bombing run. And like I want it all burned out. And he's like, talks about how he found his boy, and it really pulls at the heartstrings. And then as Stark does that thing. Those are the things we do every night. What you experienced and what's been driving you to to exterminatory violence is the very thing that we do to them every night. And he's left silently, and then they don't talk. He's not gleeful anymore. But you don't I guess this story holds out the possibility that there was a moment of conversion in that moment. Like the war of ideas was won. Because, again, as the ship's going down, and Paige is at the controls, and it looks like to Stark like that he's flying towards a village on purpose, but it's revealed later. How is it revealed later on?
Are you literally asking?
Yeah, I'm literally asking. Who?
Yeah, so throughout, it's like each of these characters has these sort of like monologues, or like I guess letters that they're writing home, and then the final page is Stark, who says he would have bombed your cities, he would have burned you all to the ground, but in that final moment he was trying to grip up on the control stick. So he was purposely fighting, like staying down with the ship, sending everyone else off so that he could pilot it safely away from the village, is the sort of implication there. No, it's pretty. Yeah. I think it's pretty well is a conversion. I think it's that image of from above, from the cold of the sky, like he can do it, but as being forced to kind of to be the instrument of the destruction itself in the plane, the humanity creeps back into it.
Yeah. And is it coincidence? Like, was that humanity in him the whole time, or was it because of his conversation with Stark? Like,
I think it was
argument with Stark.
I think it was. I think the argument was Stark because he goes to Stark. They have, they begin to have like open conflict. They have a fist fight, and then he shows up drunk at Stark's house and it's like, you just fucking do it. Just like, here's the gun if you think you can. And it is like true. A suicidal. It's a suicidal moment, right? It's like he wants to die because of what it's what's driving him. It's the death wish.
And so getting back to this contrast between cold and hot and far, cold being distance, hot being humanity, they're lit up in a way that we tend not to see in the cockpit, because one of the engines is on fire. Like, that's the diegetic reason for it. But suddenly they are both illuminated, And you can look at actually Stark's face. The art doesn't convey it extremely well. I do still think that you're right, and I wonder how this would look without the color, to be honest. But his face looks genuinely shocked as he's trying to pull away from the thing. Stark, no, you fool, you bloody fool. Stark looks shocked. Like there's the possibility of reading into that moment, like the truth of what he says later, which is like, I realize the error of what I've just attempted to do. Because he's trying to, like, he thinks that there's a suicide attempt here, but it turns out it's not.
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, and it is that moment of like self-sacrifice, because he's trying to get all the men to safely, and he wants Stark to get out of the plane as well. Even though Stark thinks that he's driven to just like go down like in a Captain Ahab style, like death spiral. Yeah.
And also getting back to your point about showing empathy, because we're far enough distant, I should hope, from World War II that there is a great deal of value in empathizing with the humanity of both sides. Like the Nazis they're not all goose-stepping monsters, and this story I'm not gonna say plays into that, but continues to, because when they're at the hospital later, it's 2 pages, 8 panels, 7 panels, and the Luftwaffe, like sergeant, I don't know, commander, whatever, he the villagers weren't so happy with you, but we at the Luftwaffe, we respect you, and so we have you in our hospital, and we're going to send you with your people later. He even says, I'm sorry about your leg, and he commends the bravery of what has happened, that both of them, because he perceives Stark to have stayed with the ship, to assist with the crash landing. And so yeah. And so Stark's left with and like what the beauty of this short moral tale is, like Stark at the end is left traumatized, like sort of haunted now with what I don't know, like, did he cause the death of Paige? Did he has to deal with the guilt of the people thinking that he was just sort of, well, I guess also is he writing in his journal? I guess there's just the idea that he's going to be haunted by this for a while, his encounter with Paige and this experience of surviving.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's also recognizing the humanity in Paige finally that is like haunting and destabilizing to him. Because he's been the whole time. Even the other crew members sort of say, like, he likes to wind you up. Like some of the stuff he says, like, yeah, we all joke like that, but he like really likes to get under your skin. Like I think he is a monster, like in the sense that Stark thinks so, but I think Paige finally connects with the reason for it and got through to him, and that conversion haunts him. But these journalistic passages, I think, are really meant to like capture the innermost fears and thoughts of these soldiers. And there's that one great one by one of the doubts of one of the crew members, basically like, I hope that the Germans are doing something awful down there, because like if they're not, or if they are, then that will justify what we do to them night after night. But it's like he doesn't know, and it's like almost like a posteriori. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right.
I don't even know anymore.
Okay, like after the fact, like justification after the fact.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm like, it is. Yeah, like, and it also, in the same vein though, also there's the mid upper gunner, and he's just like, yeah, I've just been having sex with all these women. C'est la guerre. 3 fucking Garth. Cheers for all that. Yep.
Yeah, the comic relief.
But it's also like, it's not. It fits within the, I don't know, like the tone of all of this. Like, it's not goofy. It's like, let's not forget these are sort of men at war, and this is like that's another thing. This is a very masculine story.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, you don't. that's not always the case with these war stories, but they tend to be. But that's just kind of part of the genre.
This is great though. I thought if you were going to make like another like a movie or something like that, like the next sort of greenlit project for a Garth Ennis property, like something like this would work really well as a tight 90 minutes.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, but who's gonna fucking pick this up?
Yeah, exactly. And who's gonna
Yeah.
like commemorate the humanity of the German people? Pretty
Yeah,
unlikely.
not Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, not. Yeah, well, that's fine. Maybe someone else could do it. But yeah, I don't. Garth's a TV man. I don't, to my knowledge, I don't. Has he ever made anything for the big screen?
I
Or any
don't
of
think
this
so.
stuff?
I think it's
No.
sort of been it's been the success of Preacher that has opened up other intellectual properties, namely The Boys, I think.
Yeah, The Boys, like if The Boys isn't opening up a bunch of shit for him, but I don't know, like it's fine. I mean, Garth he's still producing war stories. Like um, I got stuff on order. It's coming. He's just churning this shit out all the time.
Yeah.
Now that he's basically a millionaire.
It's just in his toolbox. It's something that he's going to keep going back to.
Yeah. So at some point, I guess maybe something will get picked up, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I thought Crossed would actually like if you were going to ever make Crossed into a movie, this would be the one to tell because it's mainstream enough and like at least in like the kind of Boys kind of way that it doesn't get too excessive because this is a patient's like it's an origin story of how the virus came to be. Yeah, and it's. I'm sorry. Are we done? You didn't have.
Oh no, yeah, no, that's fine. That was a great transition. Great transition, Chris. Très bon.
Thank you.
I have such need of encouragement.
I really need this, man.
Yeah, because this is it's a pre-apocalypse. It's you're right. It is the origin story. It's the like doesn't quite tell the story of where Crossed came from, but like it explains where Crossed came from in Britain. And I guess there's versions of this story in all of the various nations of the world. It's still left mysterious. Like it's a virus, or is it extraterrestrial? Or is it the wrath of God? Is it the Earth itself doing this? And there actually, what was that? Sorry, there was a thought that I had that before we move on to it, but it's not a war story thought. You were talking about how Crossed could be a movie. I think someone made. Fuck, it was like the Korean movie, and I can't remember the name of it right now. And it was just like I was like, oh my goodness, someone finally made Crossed. It was so awful, and so like it was really graphic, but it was also very, fuck. I wish I could think of the name. I'll tell you later. But
okay.
It came out a few years ago. I probably texted. Yeah. It's anyone listening who knows what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm sorry for the frustration that you're like you. It was you fool. But anyway, Crossed Badlands issue 50 to 56. Sorry, my bad. Illustrated by Christian Zanyar. So we're going down a few rungs in the artistic ladder. Digicore Studios doing the colors, and James Reed. That's a weird way to spell James. The incorrect way does the letters. And yeah, in a lot of ways, this feels like Ennis's last stamp on the property that he created for Avatar. Not just because it's the last thing he did, but just
like I finally given you the origin.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Like, I mean, I think I just feel it's the most political of the Avatar stories. It's like it kind of, I don't know if it gives a key to unlock like what is the meaning of Crossed for Garth Ennis, because I feel that must have changed over time.
I think it does though. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. I think it gave me, because I had questions the whole time that I could never really put my finger on. And this kind of clarified them for me.
Okay, well, good. All right. Yeah. Okay. So then maybe we're picking up the same vibes. I don't know if anything's been clarified for me, so I feel that it could be though. So
Okay.
you shall be my chair on.
And just to briefly
Did
interject, I
you
think that movie, The Sadness, I think I just looked it up.
set? Yeah, that's the one. Thank
Oh
you.
God, I'll have to watch that.
Hmm. Yeah,
All
I
right.
remember it being pretty fucking awful,
Okay.
and not in a bad way. I mean, like just like I was like, oh God, like this is definitely cross territory. They're not humping people's eye sockets or anything, which is,
Yeah. Then is it
but
really crossed? I don't know.
yeah, well, no, that's exactly it. I was like, well, this is as close as we're ever gonna get. Um, like what if the crazies were on super steroids? Um, anyway, okay, so this one, you wrote down everybody's name, I would assume, because I sure didn't, because I'm an idiot.
I think so. The main characters anyway.
Okay, okay, well, yeah, we don't. That's good enough. So I read this. I'm pretty sure. I feel I bought this when it came out because I got the physical issues in front of me. But that doesn't mean that I did, right? I could have just ordered them later. There was a period when Avatar's during the pandemic or shortly thereafter, Avatar was like just selling out its warehouse in these like shrink wrapped bundles that you could get. And I bought a bunch of stuff. And what I know for certain is that I was reading this as it was coming out. I think I bought it at the time because I had a comic shop down the street that was really good. But either way, I experienced it as it was coming out. So the point of me saying that is that I read it before. You've read it for the first time. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was quite good. I liked it a lot, and then I felt that by the end of it, I was like, well, that ended a little bit like prosaically. But then I went back to it, and I was like, no, this is good. So
Okay.
once I saw the whole thing once it layered like a fine stew the second day, there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this one, we're getting the origin story not just of Crossed, but also of the people that we saw in Crossed Badlands, like issue 25 to whatever it was, 28, 29, something like that.
Oh,
Uh,
fuck, seriously? So these characters appear later?
well, we've read. Did we not
I
read?
think you and James read some stuff without me.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah, James recognized it. He was like he recognized it as the origin of like. So there's another story about they don't show up later; they show up earlier. So Ennis told the story with these four security guards, but it's like post-apocalypse, and it's awful. If I
Okay.
remember the story, they were on a quest to go to a biological warfare lab. They were going to release the virus or something in an effort to just like kill as many people as possible, in an effort to like get rid of the Crossed, you know.
Okay.
And maybe and then but of course once they get there they're like, well, fuck, we can't do that. And so the main character, whose name escapes me,
Harry.
Harry, they're at the bunker or whatever, they're in another underground lab, and he's like, okay, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna face them and make sure that none of the Crossed get in here, because if they do, it'll be bad. And then but he kills all of his colleagues and then does a one-man standoff against like the Horde or whatever. But obviously he'll get killed or become a Cross. And I think if I remember, yeah, I feel that's the story more or less. And so this is like, whoop, how did you might be wondering how I got here. This is how he got here.
Oh, I'm gonna dig that up.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Oh yeah, man, definitely read that. All the Crossed, man. Just I don't know, just read all the Garth Ennis. He's only written hundreds of comics, so there's no reason you can't
Yeah,
have read
it's
them
my
all.
mission now.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, this is a tangent, but like I thought about putting myself on that mission, and I literally did call up some super pervert online has collected up until 2016 like a full bibliography of all Garth Ennis's writings and comics, and you'd be doing it for years, man. Like it's
Jesus.
crazy. I thought like he's like you don't realize how prolific he is.
Yeah, he's got that workman mentality. Despite being like an absolute genius, it's like it's the best of
he's
both
just
worlds.
fucking just churning it out and like all over the place, different publishers, different things, different genres, different themes and tones, but like all still, anyway, what a beauty. And so anyway, crossed Badlands. This is the origin of Harry and his three colleagues who are all from the various British Isles. There's the Irishman, the Scots, and what's the other one?
Welshman and an Englishman.
Welshman, of course, the Welshman. Yeah. Says Claire Boyo. Not that he ever actually would. Yeah. And they're bodyguards for Prime Minister Gordon Brown, although I don't think he's named as Gordon Brown, but he looks like Gordon Brown. So the origin of Crossed is like pre-conservative Britain. Because like by 2014, Brown's out. And so he could have easily made it about a different prime minister, but there was a choice here to put it with the Labour with and yeah, which is again one of the usually with Crossed it's in being post-apocalyptic it's not apolitical, but it's like deep political. It's like Hobbesian political. And this is like politics.
Yeah, there's almost I think you shared that thing about how Brown could have won the election if they had called a snap election, and it's almost like his indecisiveness cost them that advantage and let it slip to Tories. It feels like, I mean, I don't know, that's probably like a little bit of knowledge being a dangerous thing, but it does feel like that indecisiveness is really key to this whole story.
Well, I think Ennis wants to portray it as like he like often portrays the prime minister as indecisive, like, and everybody comments on it. Like he's so middle of the road. He's always asking for advice. And then he doesn't do anything. And his advisors kind of run the show.
Yeah. Except the one kind of worm character, Alistair, who's his right hand man, but just like is constantly like almost sabotage. Like Harry calls him out and just says like, is this sabotage? Like, I don't get you.
He's kind of a Burke character. He's Paul Reiner, is that his name? Paul Reiser. There we go. Yeah, he's like Paul Reiser.
Yeah, not as competent, not as oily and like scary. He's more of just like a cowardly worm who's
Harry spots him immediately. Harry spots him immediately and like knows the game that's being played. Harry's ultra competence is nice to see. I never mind when Ennis has an ultra competent character. Like, he's smarter than everybody. He's more observant than everybody. He's physically more impressive than everybody. He's got a gang, like the coolest gang you could possibly be a part of. Well, not the coolest gang, but like a toughest gang you could be a part of. How about that?
Yeah. Operators.
It's cool, but he's just like cool. And there's a sense that because the prime minister said, well, I trust you or whatever, and like, of course that's bullshit. But there's a sense that he has that like he feels that he might have been able to manage the situation better because he has more of a, I don't know, like a brutal, violent attitude towards human existence. He has a sort of a Hobbesian attitude towards like, I don't know. Well, I guess towards life, but he's not like vicious or cruel. He's not himself cruel.
Yeah, he's almost like a perfect man of like who's been tempered by violence, but he's killed. He's put people down who deserve it. He's a protector. I think that actually is really important in terms of like there's a contrast between him and the Cross, and there's even an image. Not to jump too far ahead, but there's the patient zero is like they have him in this like basically sealed away in a room, and he's still able to talk and he hasn't gone full Crossed. But there's a panel where it's like a split. They're like on either side of the mirror, and like half their faces are kind of intersecting. Then the patient zero puts his hand on the glass, and like it's like, there's just like this drawing of a parallel between them.
Mm-hmm.
They're mirror images, but distorted. It's like the best and the absolute worst of humanity.
Yeah, well, because below all this cool exterior, so there's like I will reduce it because I think the text kind of invites a reduction. This is sort of like a Freudian return of the repressed type thing, like civilized underneath civilization. There's all these urges and all this violence, and all these, under the superego, there's the id, right? And we've talked about the crossed as full id, and kind of that's what's going on inside of Harry. But you're right, he's tempered it, right? So it's not necessarily that there's a mirror image, but there is you're what's underneath me, I am what is underneath you. Underneath that mask that you're wearing, there's me waiting to come out. I think if I remember correctly with Harry, I think he goes to try and see his wife and kids, and I think it turns horrible.
Okay, he does go to do that at the end of this. I don't know how it turns out, but
yeah, and I don't remember the specifics, but I can guarantee it goes horrible. Which is again another parallel with Patient Zero, because he murdered his, that's what we open up with, is him just murdering his family and drowning his daughter. And
those moments are so good, like those sort of dialogue. So there's it feels like every issue starts with this sort of dialogue kind of describing what it's like to be a crossed. And it's like it's pure interiority. I think even the page is just black. It's just words. And then the first one, it says the voice at the base of his skull, like new shining steel, yet ancient as a dagger, the smirking hiss that made things it bade him do feel like their own reward. And it is that primitive brain. It is pure id. It's the delight in the violence itself. And there's really, really interesting wording, because he drowns his children and then strangles his wife, and it's awful. And he's even more awful that he's conscious of it. It doesn't end him as a conscious being. And he says, "What have you done, you fool? They loved you, but they loved you, not you loved them."
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But then none of that, and I guess I don't know what to make of the fact that the Patient Zero is just some guy who broke, and murdered his family. And I feel that there's a key somewhere in what you're saying, in that. What prevents him from going full crossed? Maybe it doesn't need to be explained. Maybe it's just this is what it's like. Because I think actually maybe they do explain it a little bit. This guy is kind of the biologist, or the lab lady. She's there's a virus and it's changing, it's mutating, it's figuring itself out, and it's creating physiological changes, but not quite with this fella, and not quite with anybody else at this stage who gets infected.
That's right.
This is the story of, it's so it's pre-COVID, but it's COVID. It was very the government distrust, mutating virus. What do we do to contain it? How do we control the messaging? All that stuff. I mean, of course, you could think of all that stuff without having gone through COVID, but having gone through COVID, and the sort of atavisms that emerge as a consequence of the pandemic, you're like, okay, this is way to go, Garth. You fucking nailed it.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the answer is that as this virus mutates, it's almost like judging, it's weighing humanity. It's taking its final form from what's latent in us, that darkness.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's because it is it oscillates between self-destruction or violent homicidal mania, plus extra sadism and all that shit. But because there's that town, there's a whole town that disappears, and it's oh shit, what's gonna happen to them? But actually they not just, but they en masse like lemmings dive off a cliff while bashing each other on the way, some of them. So it's almost like an evolution, finding its optimal form.
Yeah.
As that one page, I love. I don't love, but like the
You can say love. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The whenever there's like a large like scene of cross, it's like just spotting the atrocity. It's like a little like little details.
Oh, little Where's Waldo of like, exactly. Oh, what happened to that one?
Exactly. And there's that one as they dive off the cliff, that like at the very bottom, there's this lady who's like diving with her baby in her arms, but the baby's like obviously like held out so that it'll take the impact first. Like that's so fucked.
Oh God, I didn't play that game with that particular image, but it was yeah. I was I was reading these. The boy was around at the time, and it's a rare moment where like I censor what I'm reading. I was like, yeah, we're not going to be looking at Cross together, kid.
No,
maybe next year. Maybe next year. Anyway, yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the story opens up. I want to go back to he ran with the boys at the base of his skull, blah blah blah. As you know, I'm like I like to fuck around with poetry a little bit, and reading lines like this kind of gives me more confidence, because like, yet ancient is a dagger, that smirking hiss that made the, it sounds fantastic, but then like you imagine writing it and you'd be embarrassed.
True.
And Garth just doesn't give a shit, and it's like, I'm gonna make it sound good. This is my voice. Here's the analogy, here's the simile that I'm going to go for. I'm just going to fucking go for it, and then I'm going to write 2,000 other words today. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. And the way I've mentioned this before, but the way he does it is like he'll throw in that like poetic moment, but then he'll like back it off with like just like good old British tough guy talk, like just like a bunch of old boys who don't give a fuck about anything, would mock you for reading poetry. But it's like, it's right there. It's like embedded in there. Like he loves it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then we go straight. I think that's another one of the things that I just wish Cross had better art. Often, and when Jason Burrows is doing it, fucking aces, and fucking Christian Zanier, like you're doing well, but like it's actually quite shocking how well this goes off, considering how bad this art is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm even hesitant to call it bad because it goes off so well. Like everybody, I can tell what their emotions are. I can but it's all it's badly photo referenced a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's serviceable, but like Harry's haircut is so fucking stupid. Like I just it makes me angry every time I look at it. It's like this bowl cut shag, and this is like our cool guy. Like I don't know.
Oh, you're right. He does have a bowl cut shag. That hurts. Ouch. Yeah, Harry's not cool no more. All right, so the poetry thing, cool. We open up with patient 0. So we got 1, 2, 3 pages, 4, 5 pages of patient 0, but he gets buzzed by a fighter bomber. And then we cut, and then that seems weird. Why did he get buzzed by a fighter bomber, right? But it just happened. Yeah. It just happens, and you're like, okay, fine. Then we get to Harry and his crew, and they're watching Prime Minister Brown. But then we get to the bomber crew, and they buzzed him. The two, Angelina Jolie and whoever the other fucking guy is, who's obviously modeled on, I don't know, someone. And they're in love, and yeah, they did it. And I don't
right?
like it's. I think
they're
so.
Just like scaring him. Or I was wondering if it was like maybe the rogue crew, because like a pair of Cross steal a jet, a tornado.
Oh, that's true. But she talks about like, fuck, I can't find it. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna find it. But they were talking about. He's talking about like, you don't just fly, you do like you go close to the ground and you do
okay
stuff.
Oh, I see. So not intentionally. Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah, I remember that. Fair enough.
At 0 feet on bloody night vision, the word that comes to mind is not love. Yeah, so like I think that was her and him.
That was, yeah.
And that's just a way of like putting them into the story, but what, and then that's your main characters, like, and then it's all set up. it's done rather nicely. And then off you go. The bombers seem very peripheral, and then they're very central. And I think this gets to what you were saying earlier. And to build off of it is like Ennis. Frost is a very weird avenue for Ennis to be able to flex all of his muscles. And if I'm correct about the themes of his war stories, you got boys action, you got like political moralizing, and then you have love under conditions of tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Crossed Badlands hits all those marks.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This particular story, anyway, and it's all set up right there. And he's just gonna have fun with the things he likes to have fun with one last time before he fucks off from the property because he's a millionaire. I don't know if he's a millionaire at the time, but
yeah.
You think we'll get him back? You think Avatar is gonna be like?
Well, I don't know about Avatar, but also he taught us some new words, or at least he taught me a new word, which is catamite.
Catamite?
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't know what that was, because
I didn't know that.
Audience members do not read into this phrase at all. I could have swore that I learned it from you.
I don't know what to think about that. But
but there was like a word. Fuck no, I guess it wasn't catamite, but
there we go.
What does catamite mean?
Catamite means, and you will be richly rewarded, because you're actually told, like, Harry accuses Alistair, who's like the worm underneath the Prime Minister, says he wants to be a catamite for the great man. He's like, look it up, and it's Garth telling you, like, you're gonna want to know this one. It's a boy kept for homosexual practices is the definition I found.
Right. Okay. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
That sounds like me.
Comes back several times.
Yeah. Did you look that up?
Yeah. And then the first introduction of crossed behavior, the one of the, like, a similar body, I guess, like a rival squad bodyguards smacks the patient's ear in the face as he tries to escape, like bursts through a glass window and comes at the Prime Minister and gets dropped, put back in his cell. But then the blood gets in his face. So when they go to interrogate him, or no, they have an outburst and then they get thrown in this thing, and then they kill a couple of the people in the room, and then it's like, oh, then they had other ideas. And then the youngest of them, Secret Serviceman, pops up, and his eyes are gouged out, his teeth are all broken, and he's naked, and they're like, just like the worst statement. Yeah. And a similar thing happens to our boy Alistair by the end of it.
And rightly so. Like, you really hate Alistair in this. He's such a hothead. So the drama, what ends up happening is, in the heat of basically an apocalyptic moment where Crossed is breaking out all over the world, a global pandemic of zombies, violent rape zombies. Also there's the threat of nuclear missiles being fired at Russia, from Russia to America. And so, like, the Brits need to, figure out if they're going to engage, how they're going to engage. And there's a request to, like, shoot down all the Russian bombers before they hit America, because NORAD's just going to, like, retaliate. And so it's kind of like a quest to avoid total apocalypse, or maybe like to avoid total annihilation instead of in order to experience an apocalypse in the old sense, in the revelation, like biblical sense, like a tribulation. I think like all this stuff, like, I feel, having said that out loud, it just feels like Left Behind. It just feels like all that, like, rapture shit. That's kind of.
But nobody gets to leave.
No, just the hard way. It's just, you got to go it the hard way. And so that's kind of the central drama. And the reason I said all that is because Alistair is just like this fucking maniac throughout the whole process, and he's just like he represents all of humanity's and political elites like lack of level-headedness, lack of reason, lack of like trust,
Spinelessness,
yeah,
xenophobia.
yeah,
Yeah, because he's convinced that it's it's a targeted biological outbreak, it's a terrorist attack, and the scientists are like, well, maybe, but like, what? How are you going to control a population that's like this? It's only going to bounce back on you. So there's no way. It just doesn't seem like a great biological weapon. And then the science says like there are even better agents that already exist for that purpose. Why design this? So that's why she begins to speculate that this is sort of like nature's self-defense sequence, like sort of terminating humanity and shutting it down.
yeah. You saw that like the getting back to the COVID parallel, like like it's a race-specific bioweapon. Like what?
Yes.
You fucking idiots.
Yeah.
How's it? It's gonna stay a race-specific bioweapon. Let's assume for the moment that was possible. Like you let that out in the world, and it's just gonna be like it's not gonna stay a race-specific bioweapon for long. Like
yeah,
it's gonna want to stay alive. It's gonna want to move on. Yeah. So he's a piece of shit, and you really enjoy Harry dealing with him throughout. But like Burke in Aliens, Alistair, like he's just like he's gumming up the works. He is sabotaging everything. Whether he meant to or not is an open question. Kind of a coward, and a kind of a what's the word? Incompetent coward.
Yeah. He gets them to that facility because like he's scared and he's like, this is the safest place, but it is very much about him being protected. Like going into a place where the patient zero is not Harry's idea of protecting the Prime Minister.
Yeah. So at the same time all this is happening, our love interests are the bombers or whatever. They are they're the ones who are showing us like how fucking crazy it is outside. And everything's breaking down, and there's mass rapes and murders and fires burning, and I killed my baby. I killed my fucking baby. Go, why?
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck do you want me to do? I just love her fucking disgusted face.
And the splash page flipped to like the Jeep just crushing that lady.
Oh yeah, and the kid going flying.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness. And I love that okay, so Christian Xanier, this is why you're a beauty, because like the violence that's portrayed here is like I do want to see the script. I want to know if like how much Garth was like, and the ankle gets shattered by the fucking tire. And I'd like to see 2 of the knees explode and perhaps her guts spew out.
And is her breast out the whole time in that script? Because that's
just
adds something to that moment.
She's cross-eyed too. He just can't, like, every once in a while, like he's just got to be funny, because like it can't just be dour the entire time. Like Crossed is hilarious as a concept. It's kind of like Gremlins 2, or Gremlins, I suppose.
Oh my god, no, 2 feels very like there's a bit of a zaniness to it in the sickest way. I guess Gremlins is zany in the sickest way, but this certainly is.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're making their way, and because they need bomber pilots. So it's kind of like it's got a good Chuck Dixon structure, in that you've got all these like parallel storylines that are going to intertwine at the end. Like when Chuck like really pulls it off, it tends to look like that. And that's the highest compliment I can ever give Garth. Yeah, Chuck Dixon did, buddy. Spoilers. Garth, Grant Morrison does Chuck Dixon in New X-Men numerous times, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that later. But there's definitely some things that are being I think it's just common to the narrative, to the medium. But I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely look forward to that.
Yeah, that's right. Audience, hold your breath. Starting now, you're gonna find out. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna get to the like those. So throughout this, they're trying to, because they have patient zero there in that bunker, and he's willing to talk, and he's like, but he's sort of suppressed. He doesn't know who he is necessarily. He has this great sense of guilt. It's not totally clear if he remembers all the time. It does kind of seem like he does. He's basically trying to hold back the inhumanity in him. But he's kind of constantly being goaded into bringing it out. He says that he's trying to make the smiling voice go away again, because if it lasts, there'll be no stopping it. One question I've always had about Cross, and which I alluded to earlier, is why the cruise or the cross pattern on the faces, and like what is that? Because this is obviously symbol. Like you can't tell me it's not. And I think this really does get into
Chris.
that. Yeah.
I just told you it's not.
No, it is. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because they had that.
But it's not.
Oh, God damn it. They have that conversation with where the original guy says, like, do you believe in God? And Harry says, I believe in a part of man that he calls God, in which voice he speaks when he grants himself license to perform the utterly unspeakable. Great quote. Like that's Garth to the core, the sort of atheism. But that is that I think that, when you've gone completely over to that, completely over to id, and you're just doing whatever the fuck you want, that it is like a religious conversion, and that it does suddenly make sense. The symbolism, like.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I see. So they've sanctified themselves, or yeah, like this is. Yeah. I always viewed it as a sort of like the Crusades. They would wear, they would wear the cross on them. But yeah, you're right though. Like what's the in story? Sort of like how does it tie it all together? I think one of the questions I suppose I'd also had is like why all this laughter and playfulness associated with these people? Like what, like other than the fact that it's more fun and it's crazy and scary, it's basically like what if there's a Joker virus out there, and the Joker actually like had murderous, like proper madman murderous intent, and was thousands of them. That still I'm not sure is explained by anything. The joyousness of the murder. I think what makes, and I can't immediately find it, but there is this descent that happens in the visions of Patient Zero. He's like I was seeing things that were happening, and then I was seeing things all throughout history. And like all this violence and all this fucking madness.
Those examples are great too. I looked up like there's in issue 5, it kind of goes over like what you're talking about. Now in the desert, slashing children's throats and offering to Yahweh. And then he talks about the viceroy, which I looked up, and it's an official who acts as a representative of a ruler. So basically, again, like I'm speaking for God. And they're, tying men to cannon muzzles, and then Bin Laden he sees again. Description there. Yeah.
Oh, it's right at the first page. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah. Again, it's these like it's this vista of like holy images, or at least like the like almost like a power put on the self, like that you can justify anything in that name.
Yeah, and so no history class, no documentary, and I suppose this is the attempt to explain where the smile comes from. No history class, no documentary delivered there. Instead, it seemed he'd been arranged a private viewing of the pit, and more surprising still, he realized he was, turn the page, a badly illustrated version of him starting to smile. And yeah, you
Right.
sort of have to laugh, or you're gonna cry. Um, yeah, but there's not like once like I guess once the virus hits you again, I'm like the parallel with the Joker as he's been depicted since the 80s is like, don't you get the joke? Humanity means nothing. All this violence is funny. Batman's attempt to maintain order is just um I think it's fine. Yeah, well obviously you can pull a lot of drama out of it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a great image, but
And
uh,
where this goes, where like Joker's never going to go, is like the sexual sadism, which is like, a lot of people say is inherent in serial killers, like that.
yeah,
That
yeah.
yeah, that's all brought, like that potential is all brought out with this virus.
Like someone who abuses dogs at a
Oh
crocodile farm.
God, just like like a real British guy in the news today. Jesus Christ.
Um, yeah, I kind of want to like so Ennis's particular type of atheism is very um well, to say it's disrespectful is to put a hat on a head, I think. Um, but yeah, like like God, that is what and amongst the sort of like new atheists, militant atheists or whatever, like there is a sort of reductionist vision of what it means to believe in God, and like I as I think you would know, or and definitely for those who don't know me, like I'm Invisible Space Daddy does not exist. Like I'm not on board with any of that shit. But well, there's no but. Oh no, the but is just like I don't therefore think that belief in God is the thing that is irrational in human existence. And with Garth, it's not only that belief in God is the thing that makes people irrational; it is a thing that makes them violent. And I'm not going to deny that religious ideology serves as a mask to put over justifications for violence. Like that absolutely happens. But it's like you could do all like those masks. They just exist. You can just put anything on top of humanity's desire to engage in warfare. It's and what's at root is something different.
It's true. I agree with you there. Yeah. But
Um,
I think there's like what I would say to that I don't mind reading is that if God is a metaphor for whatever that justification is going to be, that's fine by me. Like in these like as your sort of like leading symbol in this, and like it is like that Crusader mentality. The Crusades is a perfect way, but just sort of like um, you know, such belief that you're just inflicting atrocities.
and I think this comes down to I don't know if it comes down to it, but maybe there's a parallel to be drawn between like Garth's use of that simile about ancient as a dagger. Like there is a willingness, like he's just writing stories, and so you need like a frame for it. And I hate fucking religion. Fuck all of you people. And I'm just gonna talk about a zombie apocalypse and also talk about God. And um, it just you pick some blunt instruments and then you find subtlety within those blunt instruments. Uh, I think like I think that's the playground that Garth operates in, and that's one of the reasons he's able to remain so prolific is because he's got these big sweeping, like he swings for the fences, right? But
Yeah,
he's got skill and grace, and like he's a good player, like to use the baseball analogy, like he's an excellent hitter. But he's swinging right each time. And you look at it and you're like, well, you're just swinging a baseball bat all the time, Garth. It's just maybe pick up another sport and play some tennis. Give us some tennis. And he's like, fuck you. I'm a baseball player.
right. You can make a career
Um,
being a baseball player.
yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And he certainly has. And yeah, eventually the Bombers. I don't know. Not we can if we need to jump back to talk about some other stuff, then we can absolutely do that. But
I doubt we do. I think we
there's
can
a
get
there's
two
a
bombers now.
yeah, there's a tense, so they find that here's where you get your war story thing, where they send the soldiers out to clear the deck of zombies, so that way the bomber can take off. Well, first when they go looking for the bombers, and second when they're when they're clearing the deck, um, Garth gets to do his boys action hero story with ultra fucking violence. Again, Christian Zanier, these 2-page spreads, things of beauty.
Yeah.
I don't. Someone out there owns this original art, and I'm envious that it isn't me. Because I would just love to have this. Cynthia would hate it. But I would cherish it as much as I would cherish owning like a Frank Quitely image. And yeah, they take off in the air. They find the MiGs, or the Russian bombers, not MiGs. And there's a concern because they have to set off a nuclear bomb to stop them, because they don't have enough fighter pilots. Which again gets back to the politics of all this. Like, Brown's like, well, it doesn't seem like Britain could actually defend itself. And everyone's like, well, that was a few budgets ago. You really get the sense that Ennis, I think his version of Britain is both. I think there's an episode I would sometime like to, like, within Ennis's art, like what is the ultimate politics of it? I think this story reveals that perhaps he would like a strongman sort of prime minister, someone who's decisive at the very least, and ideally someone who comes from military, someone who spends on the military, someone who like Britain can stand against whatever forces attack it. I think that is one of the little messages that comes across in this. Yeah, because the only reason they're able to succeed in the end is like sort of a self-sacrifice of two people who love each other.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Kind of save the world.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. I think there's it's always there in the way that the way that America as an ideal, or like as a concept, the potential for good is there in Garth's work. There's like a worship of some sort of something like just like an idealism that comes out of that, and it's very similar to what he would like for Britain in this.
Yeah,
sort of standing against the darkness, like just like good people, ultimately, that get the job done and sort of like keep those the darkest urges in humanity at bay.
Yeah.
Not that they succeed in that, but like it is a moment where of like the highest, like not only do they sacrifice themselves because the plane's going down and they're losing fuel, but if they trigger the nuke, then it's going to take out those planes and save the world. But in that moment, they kind of like finally admit that they loved each other from the time that they met, but they've done the decent thing and like never acknowledged it and like stuck with their wives and families, or families.
Yeah, and they felt in love the whole time.
Yeah,
like he's so good at that. Like, yeah, man, he's the fucking best. Yeah, and so it's a Hollywood moment, it's, and then. But of course, because it's a crossed story, like any optimism that's born of that is completely eliminated. Like, because Prime Minister Brown's like, I'm going to stay down here and everything's going to be fine. I've got the best advisor possible. And then the best advisor possible is turned into crossed behind him. and then the door closes and like Harry's like, duh.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Safe to ignore any orders that come out of there in the future.
Yeah.
As he says to his military buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this is kind of a field, and we don't need to go down this, but I remembered. Okay, obviously there was the controversy recently about the Olympic boxer, taken to be a transsexual woman, but not, like the whole fucking thing. But what struck me in all of that is the people who were moralizing about it's a man beating a woman. Can't you fuck, like, and it was that basic, that's the worst thing. Like, what are we condoning here as a man beating a woman? And I was reminded of a comment someone made about Preacher, where Cassidy is lamenting all of his sins or whatever, and like the greatest sin that he committed out of all of them, he's like, Jesus, I beat women, I fucking hit women, Jesse. That's the thing. Like, that's the thing. I think there's and also in that series and throughout much of other Garth's other work, there's like an impatience, let's say, with political correctness,
Yes.
with certain sort of liberal tropes. Like I think like there's a deep. I keep coming back to the word Hobbesian, but I think like sort of a Hobbesian conservatism in Garth, which at the same time is deeply humanist. It's a complex mix.
It is, and I think that's part of what makes him great, is that like there's all these elements in there, and I recognize what you're saying, but I think it always kind of comes down to something human, which is why I'll read that entire bibliography someday, maybe. Never get
Some of it's true.
Story. Oh, I'm sure.
I double dog dare you. No, he's the best. Like I don't. It's not like an ideological like purity test or whatever. Just sort of, I feel like keep defending this analysis of people's just sort of themes and that sort of thing. I hate the idea of like, oh, he doesn't conform to what I expect of a political whatever, and so therefore they ought to be disregarded. I mean, like, anyone who disregards Garth Ennis's writing is a fucking idiot. And I don't care what your politics are. Because he's easily, I think he's the best writer out there. Again, what the fuck that means, who cares? Because obviously Alan Moore is very good too. But
Grant.
Not to mention Grant. Yeah. So it's stupid for me to have said the sentence, but I said it out loud.
No, but that's like the big three. To me, like, that's the big three in comics.
Yeah, and I think that's Extinction Agenda canon at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep coming back to these ones.
Yeah. I don't know. Last ideas on Crossed. This might be the last time we talk about Crossed. I don't want to say never, but
no. Yeah. No, we're going. We'll do Jamie Delano and all that shit.
Oh my goodness.
I'll wear you down.
I kind of really like to, because I bet there's some stuff in there. Like why not? Like
even just to illuminate the highs, it could be interesting. It could be an interesting exercise at some point.
Yeah, see what the other people are up to. Well, okay, I guess maybe if you're into it and it doesn't feel like a constant retreading of the same bullshit, then I guess we'll see, right? I feel like Garth manages to get a lot of juice out of his little pet project here, and so like Jamie Delano did a bunch, David Lapham did a bunch, if I remember correctly, and I think David Hunt. I was looking down the list. There's some names. Everybody has there's like a couple people who are working on this project afterwards. Cy Spurrier.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, that would be. Yeah. That's probably shit, but something to check out. Yeah. I guess.
Well, that's the thing, though. I'm just like, oh, did we want to? Maybe it's like it's funny. It's funny. It's fun sometimes to complain about something.
Yeah, and I just want to witness unrelenting darkness, just like anybody in the Crossed universe. So
that's me too, man. Thank you.
We're drawn to it.
I feel seen now.
Yeah.
Now all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck.